So I've made a video about my rules for budget living, and this is kind of part of my rules for saving on groceries. But I don't really like to use the word rules. I prefer to say they're more like guidelines. And leave me a comment if you know what movie that quote is from. These guidelines are ways to save money on groceries that will work for anyone. So that's the thing about a lot of tips for saving on groceries, is they can be unrealistic. And going back to my last video, which you should absolutely watch, you don't have to watch it before this video. These guidelines and tips and rules can be mix and match. There's no order to them. But I will link the video here and then at the end of this video and in the description. But definitely give that one a watch. It is the #1 way to save money on groceries. So this one's kind of like the second best way to save money on groceries. And like I was starting to say and I interrupted myself, it is very applicable to anyone in any situation, any stage of life. You can tweak it to fit your circumstances. And spoiler alert, my last video was about being realistic and how that is the #1 way to save money on groceries. You have to be realistic for your life, your situation, your level of cooking skills, things like that. If you are not Betty Crocker, don't try and be Betty Crocker. You're gonna waste a bunch of money on things you're never gonna cook, and you're gonna throw in the towel and go out to eat. That's a very brief summary of the last video. But definitely go watch that one after this and see all my tips there for how to be realistic and how to still save money, even while recognizing you're not gonna cook from scratch meals every night at home, okay? So you can do that and you can still save money on groceries. And this video, the second best way to save money on groceries is by meal planning. You might have seen that coming. And I wanna talk about how if you think you don't meal plan and if you think meal planning doesn't work for you, you do meal plan. Your meal plan may be flying by the seat of your pants, making it up every night, but you plan to eat, therefore you meal plan. Your plan may be to wing it. Your plan may be popping into the grocery store with whatever recipe pops into your brain or pops up on Pinterest or TikTok or YouTube or whatever. But that is your plan. So if you think you don't meal plan, you do. You just probably don't do it very well. And you probably waste a lot of money on groceries. So much like my last video, we're gonna talk about how to make meal planning realistic. My refrigerator just dropped ice. We're gonna talk about how to make meal planning realistic, how to make it work for you in whatever way is best for your family. Let's first talk about some myths about meal planning. And I have a really hard time saying myths because of my lisp. So, meal planning myths. #1 meal planning myth, or reason people say they don't like meal planning, is they say that they don't want to be locked into making a certain meal on a certain night. What if they don't feel like cooking that? What if they don't feel like eating that? Don't. Like, you don't have to. That's not what this means. My meal plan is typically a list of meal options that I buy the ingredients for. And I'm gonna go into further detail on this in future videos. I mentioned in my last video, I'm going through and redoing some of my first videos because they weren't very good, wow. They weren't very good because I was new on YouTube and it's just not my best work. So I'm redoing them and making them more interesting for one thing. But what was I saying? So my meal plans are generally a list of meals that I can decide to make on any day. But I do make my meal plan based on my kitchen stock, my kitchen inventory, and yeah, I'll have a video about how to do that to save the most money with a budget meal plan that again fits your lifestyle and is realistic for you. These videos are building a little bit. You can watch the last week's video after this one, but the one coming after this, you'll need to watch this one first. So if you're coming from that video in the future, hello. But yeah, so make your money saving meal plans will be a later video. But meal planning myths. Anywho, interrupting myself, getting off track. If you watch my videos, you know this is a common thing. So you do not have to have a certain meal on a certain day, with a little bit of a caveat. So I do recommend, or one of my biggest meal planning tips to make you stick to your meal plan is to recognize what's going on in the evening. Again, going back to being realistic and how being realistic is the best way to save money on groceries. Do not plan a bunch of home cooked from scratch meals if you've got like 8 different evening activities during the 5-day work week. Like you're not gonna come home from soccer practice and ballet and cook a from scratch meal and then get the kids to bed and all the things, right? Frozen pizza can be part of your meal plan. Again, another myth is that you have to have from scratch homemade dinners as your meal plan. No. You can have frozen pizza. You can have takeout. You can have Chick-fil-A night. You can have kids eat free at Denny's night on your meal plan, okay? Your meal plan does not need to be certain meals on certain days. It does not need to be made from scratch meals that you put together every night. It doesn't have to be complicated in any way, shape, or form. Your meal plan can be whatever you want it to be. It's your meal plan. So I have a product, I'll link it in the description, but it is called the Simple Dinner Solution. And it is, again, my guidelines, my 5 guidelines that help me get dinner on the table 7 nights a week, most weeks of the year. Unless we're traveling or like I'm sick or something, which I will link here in my video about my backup emergency dinners. And that's what I do when I'm sick. So actually, even when I'm sick or like something just goes awry, I've had a really bad day at work, whatever, or I've had a brain fart and I forget an ingredient or something at the store and I just don't have dinner put together or forget to thaw something. You know, we all have those moments. Those backup emergency dinners help me eat dinner at home 7 nights a week, even on those days, right? So when I say eating dinner at home 7 nights a week, I mean eating dinner at home. I don't mean cooking from scratch meals, okay? So anyhow, these 5 guidelines are what help me eat dinner at home, whatever that looks like, whether it is frozen pizza, whether it is a from scratch meal, whether it is leftovers. Planned leftover night totally counts as eating dinner at home too. There's a difference between eating dinner at home and home cooking. They are not the same thing. But no matter what, if you eat dinner inside your house and it came from your fridge or freezer, it's gonna be cheaper than going out. So these 5 guidelines help me do that. And they, like, not Genesis, that means beginning. Synthesis, what word am I trying to think of? Oh, the underlying theme of all of these guidelines is being realistic and making these things work for you, making your meal plan work for you. And that is the title of one of the guidelines, is make your meal plan work for you and make your meal plan do more work for you than you do for it. So having a simple way of coming up with dinner ideas is another one of the guidelines. I have like a plan. I have backup. I always have an emergency backup plan for dinner. So that's 3 of them right there. So being realistic and making your meal plan work for you, and then having a backup plan is 3 of the 5 guidelines right there. And so I'll drop a link to that in the description as well. If you want to get that, it's an ebook, and it kind of gives some more specific details on these things, more than I can go to in a YouTube video, and it has exercises so that you can implement all of these guidelines. But yeah, I'll link that description below. All right, so the myths: you don't have to have meals assigned to a day, other than, you know, if you have a really busy extra late night and you have a crock pot meal in your meal plan, it's probably going to be for that night, right? So you don't have to assign them to days, but you obviously can. They don't have to be all from scratch meals, and they don't have to be complicated. You don't have to have complicated fancy meal plans. But I will say, choose your hard. So you can spend the time putting together a meal plan. You can spend the time looking at what you have in here. So this is going to be my next video, but you can spend the time shopping your kitchen and seeing what you have to save money, or you can spend the time going to the drive-thru because you don't have a plan for dinner. You can spend the time stressing about money, you know, so choose your heart. If you're not meal planning, you're scrambling in some sort of way. Financially, time-wise, trying to figure out dinner at the last minute. Choose your heart. And then, why meal plans fail? Chances are you made it too complicated. Again, going back to my last video, you gotta be realistic. If you are not Betty Crocker, don't try and be Betty Crocker. If you cook 1 night a week right now, don't try and plan 7 nights of cooking. If you plan 3 nights, don't try and plan 7 nights of cooking. Add 1 night. Again, I'm saying this in the last video and I'm saying it here. Add 1 night. Be realistic in how you can stretch yourself. Sure, cooking at home, eating at home. Remember, eating at home is different than cooking at home. Add 1 at a time for that. Yes, that's the best way to save money, but just don't push yourself too much, okay? I say a lot that this is kind of like eating healthy and working out. Saving money, eating at home, saving money on groceries. It's kind of the same idea. If you set unrealistic goals, you're never gonna meet them, you're gonna throw in the towel, you're gonna get upset with yourself, things like that. Just don't do that. Don't set yourself up for failure. So your meal plans fail because you've made them too complicated, and also you didn't factor in your schedule. So like I was just saying, if you have a crock-pot meal on your meal plan or something super simple, you do need to plan that for your busiest nights. But going back in time, you need to make sure that your meal plan includes plans for your busy nights. You need to check your calendar before you make a meal plan. Do not sit down and just make a list of meals you're gonna have that week without thinking about what your week looks like. If you've got like I almost said PTO, that's not what it's called, PTA, not paid time off, Parent Teacher Association. If there's a PTA meeting this week that you don't usually have, don't forget about it and plan a home cooked meal that night, like from scratch. It's gonna take 30 plus minutes when you have 5 minutes between getting home and having to leave for the PTA meeting, right? Don't do that. Maybe you have sandwiches that night. Maybe it's a planned night out. Maybe if you have teenagers, maybe they throw a pizza in the oven for you before you get home. That would be amazing, right? Like if you have older kids, take advantage of that. Make them make some small things. They can throw rice in a rice cooker. They can shred chicken in a crock pot. They can throw half-made things into the oven. They can set up freezer meals, all of that. Make them do it. Or make even like older elementary kids can help in the kitchen. Do it. So yes, got off track there. Factor in your schedule. Take a look at your calendar when you're meal planning and make sure you make a plan for those busy nights. And again, part of your meal plan, part of the plan for the busy nights can be freezer meals, can be frozen pizza, can be planned nights out. So per usual, I rambled a little bit in this video, but this is kind of an extension of the previous video and me asserting that meal planning is not what you think. So again, it's not boring. It doesn't have to be tedious. It doesn't have to lock you into certain dinners on certain days. If you do plan 5 meals in a week and you see a new recipe or something and you're like, ooh, that sounds amazing, I want to go to the store and buy the ingredients for it. All right, you don't like have to ban yourself from doing that just because you made a meal plan. I would say don't do that if you have some sort of fresh ingredient you need to cook. If you need to use up the ingredients in your kitchen, cook those meals first. Put that recipe on next week's meal plan. You don't have to like deprive yourself to have a meal plan. Like, ooh, that recipe looks really cool. Make a note of it, save it on your phone, put it on a Pinterest board, and make it next week. I usually have a running list, like a note in my phone of it's titled Next Meals. And so if I see something or I randomly remember a meal that we haven't had in a while that I want to eat, I'll put it on that list. And then when I sit down to make my meal plan, most of the time I have at least 3 or 4 things on there and I'm like, cool, week's half plan. I have to do less work to fill in the rest of this meal plan. So yeah, don't view meal plans as restrictive or boring. If your dinners are boring, that's actually not your meal plan's fault. Like you need to put in a little bit of effort to make a list. Again, I'm gonna talk about this in more videos, so subscribe and turn on notifications for my upcoming videos. Next one will be about making your meal plans save money for you, making budget-friendly meal plans. And then the one after that will either be, so I've already recorded one about how I saved over $300 on flights this summer. And we're about to go on one of those trips. So that video is gonna probably be posted while we're out of town because it's already filmed. After that will be one of my biggest meal planning tips to make meal planning easier, how to make a go-to dinners list. So that's one of my old videos again that I'm redoing. It was really not a good video. I don't know what I was doing. I was trying things out. I was figuring out what works over here on YouTube. So I'm gonna redo that one also and make it better. But yeah, I am going to show you how to make a go-to list of dinners to make meal planning so simple, quick, and easy. And I'm going to show you how to make your easy, simple, realistic meal plans save you the most money possible. So again, please make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you have any questions related to this video or meal planning difficulties in general, drop a comment. If you like this video and found it helpful, please give me a like as well. And yeah, subscribe and stay tuned for those upcoming videos to help you save the most money as we get back into the crazy school year time.